yeah, so I just want it to be sort of nice, sort of a casual chat. I'm going to sort of share some techniques, chat about the wax and the tools, and sort of hopefully we can sort of, once we get going with it, we can get it into a bit more of a sort of discussion as such. So yeah, so everybody at this point should have their wax packs, and if you haven't got it yet, then if you could come and get it as soon as you can, drop me an email and sort of come along when you're next in the building. The reason that we've done the wax and got the wax packs is, like I said, so that it's just a little bit more accessible for you to be able to work from home or in the studio space, because we can't all get in the workshop like we would normally be able to. So yeah, so for just sort of explain sort of the project as such to begin with, just so we're all on the sort of same page, and with the sort of workshop as it coming in. So hopefully you guys will have all seen the workshop induction video that I put together of if you're coming into the workshop. So there's space for 5 students, that's 3 downstairs and 2 up in the mezz. And there's sort of the bench toolkit here for you to use, and everything. But because there's 20 of you guys, that means that until the end of term, there's only 2 workshop spaces each. But I would really, really encourage you to use them. Like, they're there for you. So sort of just, if you go onto the Moodle booking system and book on there, use your time slots and come in. But in addition of those, there is our weekly Zoom sessions that we're doing right now. So this is a chance for you guys to chat, share ideas, ask me questions, and I will talk about the wax. So I was just gonna explain how I'm splitting it up, because we've got these for 5 weeks. So if we had a question, I might be specifically talking about that in another week, but we can obviously just chat as we go along. So this one is week 1, and it's just introductions. I'm going to talk about wax tools and about the wax itself. In week 2, next week, I'm going to talk more about rings and repairs. In week 3, I'm going to talk more about the lost wax casting process itself. That's going to be some videos. In week 4, I'm going to talk more about wax multiples, mold making. In week 5, just talk about like finishing, the sort of finishing process. So that's how we're sort of going sort of forward with it. Yeah, so wax. Basically, it's I find it's a really great material to work with. It's so sort of soft and malleable and pliable. It enables you to create shapes and textures that you just wouldn't normally be able to get from just using like sheet or just wire. You can be a bit more sort of 3-dimensional, I guess, as such. Yeah, it's just much more forgiving. It's like I say, it's so much softer. It's a totally different material to work with. Hopefully you'll be able to feel it once you get going. So wax carving in itself is a really, really traditional technique. For what it's for is the process of lost wax casting. So I will explain it all a bit more in detail, but the wax is just the first part of it, and the wax will not be the finished piece. The finished piece will be in metal, but it's sort of the first part of the design process. But the wax carving and lost wax casting techniques is all, it's very traditional, been going on for like thousands of years. The like modern version of wax carving as such would be more of your 3D printing and like using like CNC machines. That's like using computer software to create and design something. You're able now to print directly in casting wax, although I'm not sure that we can do that at Grays. I think we can just print in the plastic, but it is possible to print in casting wax. And the CNC is, that's where you've got a block, and you're, instead of building up like the 3D print does, you're carving into with a machine. So that's sort of how it's sort of progressed as such. And I think this brief gives you a chance to explore both, to be able to do some 3D printing if you're wanting, as well as mainly wax carving and using the hand skills. So yes, right. Is there any questions as where we are? I'm going to start talking about the tools first. Yeah, all good. Cool. So first of all, so in your wax packs, there should be, first of all, a bench peg and a G-clamp for you to attach it to whichever table you've got. You should already have your own saw blade, not saw frame. You should have your own saw frame. And in the packs, I've put a single saw blade. That obviously is really tiny, but I put a little bit of tape on it, so hopefully you should be able to find it. Unlike our normal jeweler's saw blades, the spiral blade is a little bit harder to break as easy. Obviously saying that if you do break it, don't worry, you can ask me for getting another one, but that's why I put just one in. So the wax blade is in a spiral, and the reason for that is so that the wax, when you're sawing through it, it doesn't all get clogged up. So I just talk through putting the blade in again, so that we can remind ourselves. It's the same way as you would put the normal blade in, but so I would put my frame, like push it against the table with my body, and then having both my hands free, I would screw the blade in the bottom bit. My saw frame itself is adjustable, so I'm just adjusting it a bit longer there. And then pop it in the top, and then push your body weight into it, and then you can tighten the top bit. The aim is that it's nice and taut. The saw blade won't cut if it's not taut. So yeah, so what we have in our packs is the spiral saw blade. There are, as we talked about before, there are different grades of saw blade, and a standard one that we go for is the 2/0. If you could also use like a numbered blade, like a number 4, where the teeth are further apart. It's a bit bigger, or like a hacksaw blade, to cut through the wax. If you were using like a 2/0, a small one, it's just going to get clogged, and it just won't sort of cut properly. So that's why we've got that one. So that's the saw. Then in your packs, you've also got a big file. This will get you really far. Like you can do a lot with just a saw blade and a file, and sort of to using the big one first to sort of get round your shape, sort of shaping it and getting what you want from the wax. Then there's also some needle files in with you. So we've got just a set of small needle files in your packs. In the department, we've also got some specific wax needle files. And the difference with these guys is they've got much thicker teeth. So like we're saying about the wax getting clogged, the thicker teeth sort of can take away material much faster, as it doesn't get quite as clogged as the other ones. But the other ones, they can obviously get you a bit more detail. So that's what's in your packs. Then with sort of very similar with metal, you can then go on and use wet and dry paper to like get rid of more of the sort of scratchy marks, the same way you would do with metal. The thing to say is that all of the tools that you use for wax, you would keep separate from the tools that you're using for metal, because the wax obviously gets all sort of mixed and combined. You don't really want to get that mixed in with any metal filings and stuff. So you want to keep your good tools to your metal, and sort of downgrade your tools to your wax. But yeah, whatever surface is left onto the wax, that is what will be cast. So if it's sort of if you have left a rough file mark, then that's what will be cast. So it's really great that it accepts all of these textures. It's just something to bear in mind, whether you want it to be a scratchy finish or whether you want it to be a smooth finish. You'd maybe put a bit of time with a little bit of wet and dry, sort of smoothing it out whilst it's still in the wax. So that's the files. Then you've also, in your packs, you've got some carving tools. What you've got are actually like wood carving tools, but they work absolutely perfectly in the wax as well. I would just recommend sort of having a place, have a feel what tools that you've got, what those ones will do. It's worth mentioning that if you were really getting into wax, then there are these really special, really cool wax tools called Wolf tools. There's a branded name, but it's just something to, if you hear it, they're specific ones for wax. Along those lines, there's also a tool in jewelry called a graver. It's normally used for like hand engraving or stone setting, but it's the sort of a similar thing to the like carving tools that you've got, is that sort of they've got a steel sort of a sharp or different edges that you can sort of scrape into the carving wax and sort of create impressions. So that's just something to mention, that is what a graving tool would look like. Other tools that I use quite a bit would be my dividers alongside some calipers. These are especially good with rings, so we'll come back to these tools more next week. But you would sort of use them to help guide where you want to go and measure specifically if you wanted it to be a specific width. Use your calipers. Then we've also got little burrs. So these are like cylinder burrs, and there's also ball-headed burrs. And you would put those into your pendant motor, like this one, and then you would use that tool to take away a lot of the wax material, and that would be, you would be doing that to take to bring down the weight. But I'll come back to that as well. So that is sort of a basics of what I would sort of say are your sort of cold working tools, which you can do a lot from home with. So then the other tools I would say are your more hot working tools as such. So we've got, first of all, would be a spirit lamp. And for that, you would use the dental tools. So the dental tools have different, there's different heads on them. And what you would do is you would just, it's quite self-explanatory, but you would light your spirit lamp and then just hold your dental tool in the flame until it heats up, and then you would be able to slice through the wax or melt parts of the wax depending on what you're wanting to do with it. So that's the spirit lamp. Then the other one would be a soldering iron. So we've got a few of these in the department. These it can get the tool a bit hotter than the spirit lamp, and that again helps you to melt the wax. There's also such tool as a wax pen, which is handy to know about. It has a really fine little tiny nib on it, so it can be a little bit more precise for sort of fine work than the head of the soldering iron. And then another way would be to have it with the torch. So if you turned the torch on, then you could put a tool in it. So this is my solder probe, and I use this quite a bit. I would just the same way as the spirit lamp, but just sort of hold it in a very tiny flame at the torch, and again, all it does is sort of helps heat up the solder probe so that you can carefully and controlling like melt certain parts of the wax. The reason that you would melt the wax would be that it would be part of your design. It would also, if you are joining bits of wax together, or if you're spruing up your tree. So that's sort of, or with repairs. So that's sort of where you would maybe bring in some hot tools. Yeah, so that's pretty much all of the tools section. So has anybody got any questions where we are here before I start talking about the wax itself? Oh. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm just in a Zoom workshop, so. Okay, so. I've just got some guys looking at the roof, so I'll just hold on a sec, guys. Do you know exactly where it was leaking from, where it was dripping down? I don't know exactly where it's. You know where the puddle was, though? It's pretty much where you're standing, yeah. That right above us. Sorry, guys, just bear with me. Sorry.
Really?
Yes.
What's the description for the spiral saw blade? The
description.
So how do you describe?
So yeah, it wouldn't. It sort of is in its own sort of league as such. There's no. Thanks, guys. Bye. It just comes in the one size fits all. So that's a good point to say, is that with the spiral, with the other saw blades, how we had the teeth and they had to be in a certain way round. The spiral, it doesn't matter. It sort of cuts in spirals and in all directions. So you just, doesn't matter which way round it goes in. Thanks. That's the guy's gone, so we can carry on back as normal. Just checking out the roof. So I'll come over here. This is where I've got a little pile of wax. Okay. So yes, in your wax packs, first of all, what you would have is that everything all right? Can you still hear me?
We can't see the table. So as long as you're holding everything up, it's fine. But
put you back a bit.
Yeah.
Is that better? Yep. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So first of all, what we've got is the brown modeling wax, and that's, I feel like it's a really good place to start. It doesn't actually need any tools for it at all, because it's pliable in your hands. So just the heat of your hands, you're able to manipulate it, pull it apart, and sort of create some shapes with it, really. So that's the modeling wax. Then what we've also got is what we would call the carving wax. And so that comes in a variety of different blank forms. So what you guys have got in your packs is a little sheet of it, and then you've also got a bit of a ring blank. So this is what a ring blank looks like, how it comes in its tube form. This is it in the green. It also comes in just normal cylinder form. So we've got that. Like I say, you've got the sheets in your packs. So they come in a variety of different thicknesses. Then it also comes in a whole massive block. So that's a whole block of wax that you would use to sort of cut to size as to what you wanted from it. As well as in the sheet and block forms, it also comes in wire. So you can get it on a spool just the same that you can get your metal wire from. So in the department, I've got some 1.6 mil wire on a spool, and there's a load of little wire assortments here in this little pack. So it comes in a variety of blanks, which is handy to know when you're designing if it's wire or the ring blank or whatever form you want to sort of start with. The other thing to say about the wax itself is that it comes in different colors. So what we've got is the green and the blue, but it will also come in like purple, turquoise, I think there's a gold. And what that means is it's the different like strengths or like hardnesses of the wax itself. So for example, the green wax that we've got is stronger than the blue wax. So it's sort of, if you're getting really, really into the to wax carving, then it, depending on what you've designed, would depend on how strong you would need to get your wax to be. But yeah, the other thing is that all types of wax can be combined together. So you might find that the modeling wax gave you a really great textural piece, but you wanted to combine that with something a bit more sturdy, from like the green wax, for example. And so that's where you would use the hot tools to combine them together, because when they're burnt out from the lost wax casting, it will all just become the one piece of metal at the end. Remembering that the wax is just our first design process. So yeah, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the weight. I'm going to come back and have a seat. Yeah, so the weight is really important to consider when it comes to the wax, because and it's quite hard to visualize until you've physically got a wax model and a bit of metal in your hand to be able to physically feel the difference. But basically the wax will become much heavier when it's in the metal, and it's totally dependent on what type of metal that you would cast in. But for us, for this project, we're all going to be casting into copper, so that we're all having the same. And for that, it's going to be the weight of the wax will be times by 8.9, and that will be the weight of it in metal. If it's silver, it's times by approximately 10. If you were casting in aluminium, it would be much lower. Aluminium is a much lighter metal. I can't remember off the top of my head what the density of that one is. But it's a really important thing to consider, because especially when it comes to jewelry, we need to think about how it's related to the body. If a ring, for example, is too heavy, or if earrings, especially if they are too heavy, then the customer is just not going to want to wear them. So it is really important to consider the weight as we're going along. I can go and grab some samples. I've realised I've left them in my office. Would be all right for 2 seconds? I'll go and grab some samples just to show you guys. Cool.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll say, how's everybody this morning? Have we all jumped in with both feet into the jewellery project?
I'm still working it out.
Cool. Right, I'm back. Okay, so here is some little waxes. So these guys are just little flowers. And in the back of this one, this has been burred out, as I was sort of trying to say earlier, with the tools that you would put on the pendant motor. So the back's all burred out, and the front has some sort of flower shaping. That's sort of a slightly larger textured one. This would be like a fitted wedding band type idea in the metal. So that one's in metal. These two are like signet ring ideas. That's it. That's what it would look like in the wax. And then that's what it would look like in the copper. It's not being cleaned up yet, but that just gives you an idea of sort of it with before and after. Like I say, you can get some really cool textures. So this is one that was in the department that's pretty chunky and textured. And then we've also, Ben gave me some 3D prints. So I thought I'd bring these guys out as well, show these little 3D print rings. So I know that there's a lot of ring samples, but you really can design and make whatever it is you're wanting really.
Millie,
Yeah.
is there any shrinkage with the wax when you start putting the metals? I don't understand how it sort of works together, so I was just wondering if there's any shrinkage with the.
Yeah, that's a really good question. There will be a little bit of shrinkage when it gets into the metal form, but it is really quite minimal nowadays. It's more you'll see more shrinkage if you've got to involve mold making as well. So we'll talk about that more in another week. But with the mold making, that can give a significant shrinkage if you was creating multiples. But yeah, it will a little bit. And it also, if you was getting into more like technical side, like all the different colored waxes, they will have a different, like on their data sheets, they would have a different like shrinkage and stuff like that. But for us, it's going to be really, really hardly noticeable.
Thank you.
But good question though. Has anybody else got any questions where we're at?
Just a question about the 3D printing.
Yeah.
Can that be treated exactly the same as wax? In other words, you can make a mold, you can cast it into amalgam mold, and then put it into a furnace and burn it off. Exactly the same as you wax. Yeah,
it can be treated pretty much exactly the same. The only thing that I would do, like my side, is that a 3D print, I would probably increase the temperature of the kiln when we're doing the burnout so that it gets a little bit hotter so that it can burn out the plastic, because I think we'll be printing in plastic. But essentially, it is exactly the same.
Thank you.
I just, for the last thing that I wanted to show you guys would be sort of where to start with your sheet wax. So if you've got a little sheet like this in the packs, and sort of a good place to start, I would say, is to have your design and get a little bit of tracing paper, and then draw it on there. Oh, there. Sorry, the sun is really right in my face right now. So yeah, we just sort of draw your design. So it's like a little flower, and then what you want to do is stick it, just with PVA is absolutely fine, onto your sheet wax. This is a good way to get started. So that you've got your design stuck onto your bit of wax. And then you would use a sharp tool. So I've got my center punch here. You could also use a scribe or just a needle at home, anything that's just got a little bit of a point to it. And then you would just trace around your drawing onto the wax with poking little holes into the wax. And so that will make your drawing visible underneath. This is obviously pretty good if you've got something that is a little bit more complicated, or that you were sort of tracing from your sketchbook, for example, you wanted it to be the same. So you poke your little holes in. So there it looks like this. And then you would take off your tracing paper, and then you should see some little holes. It's hard for me to tell if you can see it at all, but there is little holes there, and then you could use your scribe to sort of, or center punch or sharp tool to sort of draw around them now that you've got some your guide, and then you would start saw piercing it. So remembering with the piercing saw that it works in the vertical position, just the same as it did with the metal. So you'd pop your wax on and just start cutting through it, following your guidelines to get your shape. Wax obviously gets pretty dusty, and if the good thing is, if you're from home, you don't have to wear your mask and you can just blow it away. Obviously, if you're in the studio, then you have to wear your mask, and it can get a bit clogged. So I would say sort of you can just obviously use your finger, push it, or just a little brush, like a little paintbrush can help just sort of keep sort of dusting it away so that you can keep seeing where your guidelines are. So that's where I would recommend getting started. That's how we would sort of start with cutting out a shape. But yeah, that's all I've got for you guys today. Is there any questions where we're at? I'll move myself up with some.
I was just wondering if you could cast like a shape, like an object that like if I was gonna, I can't think of like an example, but if I was gonna cast something that I already had, like a small thing, and then I don't know how easy it would be to like burn that away from, or so whether you should make like a wax version of the same thing.
Yeah, well, so it totally depends on what the object is. So the same with sort of 3D prints, we are able to cast sort of found objects as such. It would just mean that the kiln would need to be put at a high temperature to allow it to be fully burnt out. But it totally depends on what it is that we were trying to burn out. Like, obviously, if it was if the object itself was already metal, then no. If it was organic, then yes. Like if it was like a pine cone or a shell. But I'd fully recommend or say give the wax and give the 3D a go, because then you're a little bit more involved in the design process than if we're just casting the found object. I think you can burn out not shells, yes, shells, but like bone, like skulls. But I think the exception is that you cannot burn out teeth. They just won't go, apparently. Well, not that I've tried it myself. But yeah, we can cast found objects.
Okay.
But totally depends on what they are.
Yeah.
Millie?
Yeah.
Just thinking about it, what I'm probably going to try and do is something like a charm bracelet.
Okay.
But I was thinking of making the bracelet by casting as well, or mostly. In other words, the links being the sort of heavier ship's anchor type link, which you get, which is a loop with a cross piece.
Yeah.
But I'll probably need 20 plus of those.
I might have to stop you there. Well, for this project, what we're going to do is going to have a cap on 2 cast pieces each. So the amount of like waxes is obviously you can create as many as you want for them, but for the casting itself, it's just going to be 2 each, just because that'll be 40 models to be casting, and we're not going to be casting until, written down in, I think it's your 4th week, so that there's more time for you guys to be designing. We're well aware that means that there's less time for finishing, but the tutors are all aware of that. So if pieces are not as finished as you want them to be, but yeah, it'll be 2 models each.
See, in terms of that, how you're saying that you're only going to be casting like twice essentially through the project, will there be an opportunity to try and like cast just something small beforehand to kind of learn what works and what doesn't work type thing?
That is, yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look at sort of the schedule. We were gonna leave it so that we were all casting in the one go, just because of like making it fair for everybody to be able to cast. So we're probably going to have to wait and do it in the one. But yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Can I say?
Yeah.
Can we use other techniques alongside the casting? So, for connecting parts, can we use soldering? I'm just thinking of like connections to that, rather than, because if I want to make something 3D, say like a cube that is hollow and has, I was just trying to think about, connecting. It might be easier to do separate pieces and then connect, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah. So when you book your time slot in the workshop, you're not just limited to wax. You can use the workshop using any technique that we've done before.
Okay.
Doing whatever you want to do. So that's not a problem at all.
Thanks.
I was just going to ask, sorry. If we wanted to do something like if we had a sort of a stone or an idea for something to put into the jewellery, would that be possible to do through casting?
So, yes and no. So sometimes you can cast with a stone in place, but it totally depends on what the stone is. So have you guys heard of the Mohs scale of hardness? It's a level for how hard each stone is. So at the top of that, what we've got is diamonds. See if I can just turn around here. Yeah, at the top of that, what we've got is diamonds, and they're the hardest, and they would work fine into casting because they won't be burnt away. But most other stones will, with the amount of heat that's needed in the process of burning out the wax, it will destroy the stone, or it will crack the stone or discolor the stone. So it's yes, it is kind of, but also it's very risky and dependent on what the stone is.
Okay.
But yeah. Cool. Is there anybody else got any questions? No?
No.
Well, if we're all happy, then I will leave it there. Like I say, we'll be chatting weekly, so I would really recommend this week to have a play with the wax, have a feel for it, see what type you like, what type you don't like, whether it's more 3D printing you'd rather do or whatever. The other thing is that if you need more wax, then just let me know. If you wanted to have a play with the wire, or if you need more sheet, you need bigger blocks, literally just email me, just ask me, and we can arrange for you guys to come and pick it up. Easier to let me know the sooner that you know, so that if we've not got it, I can order it in, so we've got it all in time for your project.
Can I just add to that? we do have to have a 3D printed outcome.
Yeah.
You have
Okay, you do have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just thought I'd say, because we do actually have to do that. It's mandatory.
Well, yeah, you guys do know more than me.
I just thought I'd mention it just so that it's not optional, unfortunately. Sure,
No,
it'll be
fair
fun.
enough.
Sure, it'll be fun.
Emma, I was going to say a cube's fairly easy to actually do a 3D.
Yeah, I think I might be down that route for that. My cage.
Millie, just a quick question.
Yes.
Back to what Mary was asking. Presumably, if you're wanting to set a stone in your piece, you could actually form the wax around the stone, and then sort of peel back little bits, so that, and then take the stone out, and then cast it, and then push the.
Yes, yeah, exactly that. If jewelers are making a piece in wax and it has loads of stone settings in it, they will make the settings all perfectly fit the stones, have the stones in them when it's in the wax, and then remove the stones, cast it, and then set the stones in place where their seats should be pretty much the right size. But yeah.
Have you produced any more data sheets? Remember last year you produced a few on like cold forming and soldering and things like that. Is there one for casting?
Yeah, so I have. There is one on lost wax casting. Lost wax casting and wax carving. It's all the sheets that I've got are all on Moodle.
Okay.
So I don't know if you guys have accessed that or had a look at the jewelry page yet, but I can certainly send a link over. I know it can be a bit hard to find, but all on the Moodle page is a load of PDFs on sheets that I've made, and links to videos and links to videos I've made. So hopefully there'll be stuff there to help explain things.
Thanks. Thank you.
Cool. All right, so I will leave it there if we're all good. And yeah, just enjoy playing with the wax this week. And I will see you all next week.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.